Hey guys, we are back again with some rather unconventional Masters of the Universe toys today. We have got some bootleg Lego minifigures from China. So I recently showed these off on one of my haul videos and I got some response saying people wanted to take a look at them further. So today we are going to crack all of them out, and there are quite a few of them. They all just come in these little poly bags, so not a whole lot to show in terms of packaging. I got a handful of them here, but there's about 15 or so, and we've got figures that run the gamut for Masters of the Universe. So we're going to put them all together and just take a look and see what we've got here. All right guys, so here is the pile of Legos, and I'm not going to build these on camera. There's no point. It's just minifigures. But I wanted you to see just exactly how many I'm talking about here. So there's 16 of these. There are actually more of these that I didn't buy just because some of them are retreads of similar figures or different variants, 2000X variants. A couple of those popped up. So these are kind of just a lot of the core characters. So, we've got 16 of them. I'm going to put them all together and then we'll just kind of run through them real quick. All right, guys, so here is the legion of bootleg Masters of the Universe Lego minifigures, and I gotta say, right off the bat, these are actually pretty sweet. I'm not gonna necessarily go out on a limb and condone people rush out and buy bootleg products because obviously, license holders aren't being paid for these, and they are, of course, not official toys. But now that I have them in hand, I am really happy I spent the very minimal amount of money to actually get them. So like I said before, you do have to put them together. If you have any experience with Lego minifigures, you know what to expect here. And there is a lot of surprisingly good detail put into these figures. I'll kind of go through them individually quickly. But as far as an overview of them, most of them have, well, pretty much all of them have armor that you will have to pop the heads off, put the armor on. I think the only one that doesn't have that is Trapjaw, but he has a different piece because he has a removable arm. They all have accessories, they all have weapons, they've all got something that goes over their heads. Some of them, like Clawful for example, he has a lobster style head, but underneath the head, the actual Lego minifigure head is painted. So there are some places where they kind of went to the extra mile for some of these where they really didn't need to, and a couple where they kind of fell a little short. In the end, I think it all evens out. Faker's probably my favorite of the bunch. HeMan's actually towards the bottom just because he's pretty generic compared to the other guys. Skeletor is obviously awesome. They did an amazing job sculpting this Havoc staff, but we'll get into all of them individually. I'm just going to do a quick run through. I'm not going to spend 30 minutes talking about bootleg minifigures, but honestly, you could probably stop the video here and just go track them down yourselves because they are pretty cool. But yeah, let's just get into it, and we're obviously going to start with the man himself. We're going to start with HeMan. All right, so like I said right off the bat, we're just going to do HeMan. I mean, come on, it's Mo2. Got to start with HeMan first. And I didn't mention this previously, but they all do come with these little stands, which I think is really cool. It's a normal minifigure thing, but I'm excited to actually get them. Makes them stand up a lot better, and it just makes them look a little better presentation-wise. I did mention, of course, that they all have the pieces that you have to pop the heads off for. HeMan, of course, has the battle harness. He's got the painted on boots and furry loincloth. He doesn't have much of an expression on his face. He's just kind of a normal dude, but he's got that shocking yellow hair. We've got the shield, and then, of course, we do have the power sword, and he does come with the axe as well, if you are interested in using that. So you could pop, the sword out and maybe make him a more savage HeMan if you wanted. But yeah, you have options with this guy, and like I said, he's not my favorite just because out of all of them, he's the least dynamic and least exciting, really. But they, did exactly what they needed to do to give us HeMan. Next up, you can't do HeMan without doing Skeletor next. So this is, I've already said it, he's among my favorites. I'm obviously a big Skeletor guy anyway, but this guy is just great. He's got that skull painted on face, the green and the yellow, the deep-seated red eyes. He does have a power sword. He does have the awesomely sculpted Havoc staff. For a bootleg minifigure, this thing really blows me away. And he does have all of the details that you would expect to find on a Skeletor painted on the body. So, it's a bootleg, but look how cool that is. It's easily one of the best, or coolest, maybe not best quality-wise, but coolest minifigures for Lego that I've got in my entire collection now. Now here is Merman up next, and he's another one of the figures that has the fully painted minifigure head underneath the helmet. Unfortunately, his is stuck in there really good, and I have not been able to get it out, so you'll just have to take my word for it. You can see the eyes underneath the helmet through the holes. He does unfortunately have a kind of offset painted frown on his helmet, but that's okay. He does have the corncob sword, which was my only real concern, is that he had that, because that's my quintessential merman accessory. He's got his armor, he's got the painted loincloth, he's got some paint detail on the front and the back, so yeah, I don't really have any complaints about that, except for the fact that the head I'm never going to see again is not really wanting to come out. Since I already mentioned him, let's just take a look at Clawful, because he is one of the ones that has kind of the weird heads underneath. He also comes with a whole bunch of stuff too. So I put him in sort of a classic configuration where we've got the large claw and the club, but he comes with two big claws, so you could put, you know, two claws on him and have him be a double claw guy or whatever you want to do. But he does have this big, you know, lobster sea creature style head, and it just fits over top of the Lego heads. But underneath of that, he's got a actual painted on, almost Clawful looking head. I mean, they went to this detail and they really didn't need to, which I find odd. It seems more work than is really necessary, but he actually looks pretty good like that. It's not bad at all, but he definitely looks cooler with that big old thing stuck down on him, and I just think he looks really neat. Very cool, you know. That's 60 cents worth of plastic there, I think. Let's do Ram Man next, why not? So he's got this humongous piece of armor that sits over top of his chest. We've got a lot of painted detail though. You can see the frills on his pants. He's even got the skull belt buckle. He of course has his axe, and he's got his big bucket helmet. But yeah, there's just a lot of detail. He's got metallic paint on him. Come on, how could you not like that? It's very cool. He's got kind of the standard head like HeMan does underneath that helmet though. So not too crazy on the expression, but you know, anybody that knows Motu can instantly recognize that this is a Ram Man. Teela up next. We've got kind of a vintage style Teela here, so she looks like the vintage toy. We've got this serpent style headdress, you know, the goddess style headdress, where we've got a little bit of a serpent eye in there. It's not very detailed, but if you know Motu, you know what this is. We've got gold metallic paint all over her, more than I would have expected for something like this. And then we've got the serpent staff, which looks really, really cool. Very nicely detailed. It's got scales on the top of it. Just looks really cool. That's definitely a, you know, if you know Motu, you know that this is a Teela figure. Evil Lynn, this is the first one that I opened when I actually started digging into these, and I gotta say that she really wowed me with what was going on here. We've got her staff, we've got the armor piece that you put on over top, but there's still tons of painted detail on her legs and on her arms. That really cool headdress with, again, multiple layers of paint, and then she's got the painted eyebrows, eyelashes, which look really, really good. And then, of course, we've got a little bit more paint on the back side. But yeah, she just really stands out to me, and I think it's mostly because of her color scheme, and it just kind of blends really well together. Man-at-Arms here, we've got a mustachioed Man-at-Arms. There is another Man-at-Arms that I saw. I just didn't buy him. I didn't need two Man-at-Arms. I think he didn't have a mustache, or maybe he was a little more 2000X inspired. We've got that helmet. We've got the armor. He's got the bracer on his arm, and then, of course, he's got the painted leg bracer down there as well. It looks more like a pizza to me, actually. It looks like a pepperoni pizza painted on his leg. It's kind of a weird print, but this is definitely a cool-looking figure. And, of course, we've got his signature mace there, which looks just great. So he's obviously one of the cooler figures on the table here. We've got Faker. I'm always a sucker for Faker, so he's basically HeMan, you know, just a cast blue, but he's got purple paint, and he's got Skeletor's armor, but you already know that, and he's got the orange power sword, which just looks really cool. He doesn't come with anything else, but I'm always a sucker for Faker, even though he's just a carbon copy of HeMan with some different colors, and of course Skeletor's armor, but he just looks so cool. Excellent, excellent minifigure. Beastman, this is one that I can instantly tell is bootleg, because it's got some things going for it that are kind of abnormal for a Lego minifigure. He's got these shoulder pads that just sort of sit over top of the arms, which is really odd. They don't really have much grasping effect, so there's not a whole lot that's really keeping them in place. So I know that that's usually something that you wouldn't see on a legit Lego minifigure. And he looks more like he's wearing a football helmet than anything else. But underneath, we've got actually a painted kind of grisly looking face, which looks pretty good. It doesn't really scream Beastman to me. This is one of the ones that, as far as faces go and heads, doesn't really do it for me. But the rest of them, that's obviously Beastman's armor. And then of course he's got, this looks more like a hook, but it is definitely supposed to be the whip. It's kind of gummy. So he's got that, and then he's got the painted kind of furry legs down there. Stratos here is my least favorite, and you just saw why. So these little wings, they just clip on. It's another piece that it's definitely not something you would see normally anyway on a Lego minifigure. These are just kind of holding on, you know, by the grace of God, really. They don't stand very well, and I don't like this little mask that he's got. I'm not a huge Stratos guy anyway, but this one, it's just kind of ugly looking. I know what it is because I know what it's supposed to be, but it's not the greatest. It's also really sloppily painted. This is definitely the worst one that I've got out of the batch. So I knew there was going to be at least one, and if it's the one I cared about the least, it's not a bad thing. But he definitely has that Stratos look about him. It's just kind of odd, and he looks, I don't know, the mask doesn't really look, and this keeps happening. The mask just doesn't look all that great to me. Now let's do Sorceress. She looks really cool. She is one of the few that doesn't have a forward-facing piece of armor. She instead has her wings, which, same thing, pop the head off and put those on. She's got her bird headdress, we've got the staff, and then the front of her is all painted up pretty well. You can see that her feathers are painted there. It looks like they kind of missed some right around there, though. But she looks really cool. And all around, I don't have any real complaints or anything notable to really point out. Trapjaw is one of kind of an outlier for these, based on how the others are all assembled. So they've all got something that you pop the head off and you put the armor piece on. Well, Trapjaw has a removable arm. He actually came out of the bag with 2 blue arms. There's a blue arm. So you pop it out, and then this guy just sort of fits in there, which I think is pretty odd for a Lego minifigure as well, at least for legitimate ones. I've never seen one that does that, but, you know, I'm not an authority either. But he's got kind of the same, you know, standard looking kind of skeleton head. His head's not going to pop off well, but he's got kind of the standard skeleton Lego head underneath there. It just happens to be green, and he's got his mask, his helmet that has kind of the jawline painted on there and then sculpted in as well. So he looks really, really good. I mean, that's definitely a very classic style looking Trapjaw. Now I'm a big Triclops guy, but this thing is, I mean, it's a bootleg, so again, I'm not trashing them. This one kind of falls a little short. So where I've talked about the ones that have like fully painted heads underneath the masks, the helmets, like Clawful, where he really doesn't need it, Triclops doesn't have his kind of signature thing. So he's got, you can see a little bit of red shining through there under that visor. There's actually an eye there as well, but it doesn't line up very well. But if you pop this off, there's only one side, so he only has one eye, basically. You can't spin it around and give him a different color. He does have everything else he needs. He's got his armor, he's got his furry loincloth. He even has the vintage style sword with the little, you know, grasping section on there. So it's very much a vintage inspired accessory, but he just kind of, but if you're not going to worry about taking the helmet off, it's not a big deal, but you don't have the options that you might expect. Since some of these have all those weird features, it's kind of weird that Triclops doesn't. Now we've got the Cosmic Enforcer himself, Zodak, and he is one that I'm kind of just okay with. He's got his shield, he's got a gun, he's painted up pretty well, he's got the classic style armor, but the helmet looks kind of buggish to me, more so than it actually is. So it's you know, it's not terrible, but it's something's kind of off about it. He looks really, really weird. It's kind of narrowed in certain places. So it's Zodak. Had to get him, but he's not my favorite. And the last guy is MINIFIGURES, and just like Triclops, this is one of the ones that kind of fell short a little bit, because underneath the helmet, there's only one face. Now, they probably couldn't have done all 3. I don't think there's enough room for it, really. But they could have done a second one. Give me a monster face or a robot face or something. It's just weird that Clawful got a full head and MINIFIGURES doesn't get a second face. But again, I'm not going to complain too much. For the 10th time, it's a bootleg. And then his chest plate is painted pretty poorly. But again, it's a bootleg. So, yeah, but he definitely looks the part. He's got that classic style gun, too. So, you know, what are you going to do? It's a fun little spread of figures. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. They are bootleg Lego minifigures from China. you kind of get what you pay for. You're not paying much either, so it's actually a really good value. If you just want some Lego style Masters of the Universe minifigures, they're not perfect, but they are certainly better than what I had expected to have gotten. I am actually pretty blown away with the quality on these. They're definitely not Lego tier quality. You know these are not actually made by Lego, but they are surprisingly good, and for the roughly $10-ish I paid, I am absolutely happy with them. So that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share that whole thing. And until next time, guys.